Hello, lovely people, and welcome to the In Kindness We Rise podcast, the podcast where we show the world that kindness is indeed still all around. My name is Patricia Lübeck. I'm a nurturer, a healer, and a protector, and I'm so thrilled to share this third episode with you. Today, we talk to Bel Logue. Bel is an astrologer, a counsellor, a Reiki and a Seichim master practitioner. She has been working with people for quite some time, helping them to gain a deeper understanding into who they truly are and supporting them in moving the more stressful aspects of life towards a more joyful and a more peaceful existence. Bel is one of the most loving and kind beings I've ever come across, and I'm so delighted she said yes to talking to me today. At some points throughout our recording, the audio has gone a little bit funky, and I was thinking about re-recording for that purpose, but we've ultimately decided that we're not going to get it ever to be this lovely again, so we hope that you still enjoy it. Welcome with me, Bel Logue.
Can you feel it? We are coming into our hearts. Can you feel it? Our new world finally starts. Now is the time. Now is the time. In kindness we rise. Now is the time. In love we rise. In kindness and love we rise. In kindness and love we rise.
Oh, Bel, so lovely to talk to you. I've been following you on Instagram for a little while, and I've been really enjoying the way you speak about astrology. I have a really, really deep love for the stars and for astrology, but I'm definitely not an astrologer. And so I'm really happy to have you here today to pick your brains and share your love for the stars.
Well, thank you. No, it's lovely. It's lovely to be here, and it's lovely to be able to talk about astrology in a more kind of open way.
The thing I love about the way you present astrology is that to me it feels very holistic, and that it addresses how astrology can serve the person you're working with, rather than there's something written in the sky and now you're doomed and that's it, and all your autonomy is lost. Can you talk a little bit about your background and how you got to understanding astrology in this way?
Yeah, so, I mean, for me, astrology has been in my life from the very beginning, really. I mean, as far back as my memory goes, I knew I was a Leo, and I would have known all about the Leo descriptions, and I still remember all the Leos in my primary school class, like, it still really stands out. But for me, at that time, it was about self-discovery. And I had all these questions as to why I was the way that I was. And I grew up with 3 Sagittarian siblings. And so there was very much a clear distinction between them and me. And they would have made that very clear as well. Like, you're such a Leo, the way you do that, the way you do this. What does that mean? So from the very beginning, I was always interested in working out who I was and why I was the way that I was. And then after studying astrology and knowing that there's more than just sun sign or star sign, well, then I went and studied counselling. And, through the integration of kind of counselling and, and astrology and the information from both, I kind of realized that actually, astrology can really show you these kind of deeper layers and levels, and that they kind of match up. It's not just like, oh, you've got a Scorpio moon and this means all of these awful things. It's actually, well, this is a Scorpio moon and this is your story. This is the story behind that. Or you've got a Libra Mars. This is the story behind a Libra Mars. And I think when you know the story of the energy, when you know why it is the way that it is and all of the implications of it, then you can do something about it. It's not that it's set in stone and that's it. It's the understanding that every planetary position and every sign in a house has, challenging aspects. They have stressful aspects. but they also have really beneficial aspects as well. So in my work, I try to help the person understand all of the stressful aspects and all of the conflicts and stresses and tensions that are there. And then to try to help them work out how to get to this more beneficial place, like how to get to the better, like the so-called better side or less stressful side of that energy. Astrology is about understanding the energy, and then the counselling comes in, and I suppose the Reiki-Seichim come in as well through really understanding the energy at all these deeper levels and layers, and the way that it connects in with your whole entire self, so that you can move from that stressful place or from that place where the energy is more difficult to get into a place where it's more effective. And part of that is knowing what it is first and foremost, but then also that actually the way that you do things is not going to be the same as the way everybody else does things. So it's like one practice doesn't fit all, and that's what astrology kind of shows us. And also that's what our story, like our own personal story, tells us, is that there will be some kind of coping mechanisms that work more effectively for some people, but they won't work at all for others. And it's because one size does not fit all. And it's the same with, with astrology. That's kind of what astrology shows us, is that with certain planetary positions, you need certain techniques or you need certain coping mechanisms that will only really work for those combinations, but they won't work for other combinations. So my approach is very much about trying to inform and educate and really help and empower people to embrace who they are, to understand who they are, and to connect in with that, to accept it. That this is who you are, but it isn't all doom and gloom. Or it's the other side, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There are these kind of deeper exchanges of energy that's going on. And so my approach is very much about trying to help people understand it and to take control of it themselves, to embody it, to embrace it, and to work with it, as opposed to feeling like it's working against them or feeling like they're not in control of it. That, like this is just the way it is, but that we're in the driving seat of that. We are the ones who are, accelerating and braking. We are the ones who are turning and, deciding where to go. So yeah, it's about empowering people. That's my core underlying intention with my work.
Yeah, and that's why I love the way you present your work, because it's about that having a choice as well, right? Like not being at the mercy just because something is written in your papers or because planets are in a certain position right now. Exactly.
It's about choice. That's exactly it. And when I do a reading for somebody, that's what it's about. I want to give the person as much choice, to show them all of the different choices that they can make. And that it is like back to them. Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess there's immediately two things that pop into my head leading from here. The one, obviously, that we're moving through pretty intense constellations and we're just about to get fiery. This was all like a lovely thing before it gets a bit wilder. But maybe let's just throw in there, because obviously in the last couple of days there was loads of writings about star signs changes and everyone is freaking out. It's like they've lost their identity now. And I get it a little bit because I have a friend who's very strongly identifying with the Vedic astrology, and obviously when I put my details into those charts I come out very differently, but it doesn't change who I am. It's just a different way of describing it. It's not that I now stop being who I am. So there has been this big horrid outburst of people worried that they're not who they thought they were. So could you maybe just explain a little bit of why that's probably not going to change and why it is the way it is?
Yeah, well, I mean, astrology is a real ancient kind of practice. I mean, for as long as man has been there, we've been looking at the sky and wondering and questioning. And a lot of it is about observation, and that for me would be the more kind of scientific part of astrology is, you're observing what's happening in the sky, and then you're observing what's going on around you, and people born at certain times with certain planets are in certain positions, and, it's all about making notes. Even now astrologers are still kind of making notes and adjusting and adapting interpretations and refining it. But yes, so there are different systems of astrology. There's different branches of astrology and they don't all agree, and I would always encourage people, if they don't feel like what their star sign is in terms of what modern Western astrologers use in terms of the tropical zodiac system, which is probably the most common zodiac system, and that's the one that we really, we would read about in terms of horoscopes and things like that. It's the system that I use as well. If you don't fit into that, if you feel like the descriptions don't sound like you, I would say to people, look, check out Vedic astrology, check out true sidereal astrology, because they do have different planetary positions. So the reason why is it's this phenomenon of the precession of the equinoxes. So the precession of the equinoxes basically takes into consideration this kind of wobble of the Earth on its axis, which means that every year the sun moving into 0 degrees Aries is slowed down slightly. So 0 degrees Aries for every astrologer is the beginning of the astrological new year. So in true sidereal and in Vedic astrology, which is, Vedic is sidereal as well, so they would use the precession of the equinoxes, so they would take that into consideration. So basically Vedic sidereal, true sidereal astrology would look more like where the planets are right now in the sky. As we look at it presently, that's how they read astrology. But the tropical zodiac system recalculates the position of the planets to take away the precession of the equinoxes, basically, to match the sky as it was when the ancients first created astrology. So they are different. I mean, the wobble, the precession of the equinoxes is only very, very slight. But since the beginning of astrology, now there's like a 24 degree difference. I think it's about 20, something like that. It's quite large. And so it would be where, your sun is going to be, in a completely different sign, perhaps for most people, because I think it is quite as large as 24 degrees. I mean, when I first got into astrology, in terms of like later on, and I decided to go and study it, I decided to go and study it because I loved it, but it was also because I didn't know what else I wanted to do with my life, and astrology was like the only kind of consistent thing. So when I went to study it, honestly, like I always tell people this, like every class that I had in the London School of Astrology, and they told us what we were going to do that day, I'd be like rolling my eyes. Oh yeah, right. We're going to prove that these cycles mean that different things are going to happen in your life. Okay, show me. Like I went in like as a skeptic. No, I mean, I wasn't saying that to anybody, but in my head, it was like, okay, let's try this then. And every time I applied it to myself, it worked. Like it just worked. And I it's like you said, like I couldn't explain why. I couldn't go, it's because X, Y, and Z. It was like, this just works. And it was like every class, it was the same thing. It was like, this just works. But every class, it was like, yeah, right, here we go. But here we go again. Why is this working? Like technically it shouldn't work, but it does. And that's the thing is that, what I would also say to skeptics is give it a try. Get your chart read and see what happens. Don't just go onto your website and, put your details in and, and see what comes up. Go to an astrologer, a professional astrologer. And if the tropical zodiac, modern Western astrologer, if that doesn't fit, then try Vedic or try true sidereal, because they are so insightful. They will give you something. And that's the thing, is that even though they can be very different in terms of even how the chart looks, actually there are, like, even with different planetary positions, a lot of the descriptions are going to come out the same, because I think the aspects will roughly stay the same. I mean, Vedic is so detailed, and you'll get quite a similar idea. So even if the sidereal moon placement and sun placement and all the planetary placements are slightly different, I think overall you're going to get a similar kind of reading. Because I think in Vedic, I think I have a Scorpio ascendant, but I have a Scorpio moon. So, there's going to be similarities there. And, I think I've got a Cancerian something or other, but then I have Cancerian Venus, and it's like, it's gonna be similar in terms of how it reads. So, for me, it's more about, finding the one that works for you, because it does work, and it is a helpful tool to figure out who you are and to give you insight as to how to work with yourself more effectively. It's a really fabulous personal development and self-care tool. But it is, going back to what you were saying about, the star signs changing and things like that. The thing is, with all of those branches, is that the 12 sign system works. Like whichever system you go into, it's a 12 sign system, and it works. And, for whatever reason, that 13th constellation was left out, but it was a good decision that was made. They obviously had very good reasons as to why it hasn't been included. And again, like yourself, it's just like, I can't answer that question. I wasn't wrong that people, and I would love to have been, but, for whatever reason, it was valid, and they made the right decision because it works without it. So, the thing is about that story is that it's going to keep coming up, because it came from a 2016 blog post. I mean, that's 4 years ago, as we do this podcast. So, it's going to keep on coming up again and again and again.
It's not that we are burying the information and trying to keep it on the down low. Yeah. It's just that we've looked at the information and made a choice.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. And the thing about that choice is that it's most likely kind of tried and tested. When astrology was created, I mean, the tropical and sidereal system would have been exactly the same, so it would have been where they were making these observations and testing them out and writing them down and sharing them, and they probably did kind of test it and see, does it make sense to include this? And it just didn't, but again, I have no idea why it was left out. That's just my own assumption, is that it's been tracked and tested and it works as a 12 sign system. So don't worry or panic about the star signs changing, because they won't.
Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day. I was sitting outside with the stars and having my conversations, and it was a turbulent day to begin with, but just kind of sitting there and looking at the skies, I was thinking, even though everything's pretty rather mad at the moment, nothing has fallen off the sky yet. So we're kind of all right. When the skies start to fall, we can freak out. But for now, so I think even with those smaller changes, even, did you say 24 degrees or 27 degrees, I sometimes have read before, something around that, right? Even with that change, it's still a small portion of 360 degrees. It's not actually that it's flipped upside down, and I know our poles are shifting and like everything is shifting in this world, but that's still a very small margin compared to what actually exists.
Yeah, exactly. And then, and I do think that the overall kind of reading and interpretation of the energy is going to give you what it is you need. And there is going to be a resonance, no matter what kind of astrology, you connect in with, or what astrologer you go to, there's going to be a resonance and a similarity in terms of the information that's shared.
Do you find it important to ask the right questions? I was wondering about that because sometimes, we just had a couple of planets in retrograde and Chiron is in retrograde, and it's nearly like people are freaking out because it sounds like the apocalypse is near, when really it's not. Like none of this has never happened before.
Yeah. I mean, Mercury goes into retrograde like three times a year, every year. I think Venus and Mars do it every other year approximately, but all of the outer planets, they all go into retrograde every year. I think part of why people are freaking out also is because maybe they know it more. And, there are more astrologers out there and people have more access to astrology. So then they hear, oh my God, something's in retrograde, and it's like, oh my God, what does it mean? And, they hear retrograde and they freak out. And, and then you hear these descriptions of things and it's just like, oh my gosh, what does that mean for us? But so much of it is kind of slower and more personal as well. And about what you do with that information. It's what you do in the situations and the experiences and the circumstances that occur. It's not that this planet is going to make you do something. It's that something is most likely to happen when that planet is doing that. So you're most likely going to experience something, but you still have the choice as to whether to connect to that or not. It's the same with a birth chart reading. You can give somebody this reading, and they can have the most amazing chart, but if they don't actually leave their house, if they don't actually connect with the world, which is their choice, then none of that potential is going to work out. None of that is actually going to happen. So it's your choice as to how you work with that energy and what you do with that. But yeah, I think a lot of it is because there is so much information available, and then people make their own assumptions from things, and you might read one line of something and then just catastrophize. But the truth is that, I mean, I remember years ago, what year was that? 2010? Oh gosh, I should know that. When Pluto moves into Capricorn. I remember being in, the London School of Astrology, and we were talking about when Pluto is going to move into Capricorn and all of these other things that were going on, and it was like the world is going to shift. And I remember just thinking, like, my God, I remember telling everybody about it, like, oh my God, it did represent, it did coincide with and represented a lot of major shifts and changes in terms of the structures and the systems that we all plug into. Pluto is still in Capricorn. So, we're still going through this kind of transformation of systems, and, and like that it was when the financial crash kind of happened. That's when Pluto moved into Capricorn. So, there are always these big events. There are always these kind of life-changing experiences that happen on a collective level, but also on a personal level as well. That yes, the stars will predict or forecast. But they're always happening. It's not like this year in particular is, the worst year ever. That yes, so many things have happened. And yeah, it is a big challenge. Like this year is a big challenge for a lot of people. But depending on where you live in the world, you could be having challenges every single day. Your world could be upside down every single day. And it has been for the last 5 years, 10 years, depending on where you live. You could be living in a war zone, you could be living in famine and drought. So, I think there's something about that as well. It goes back to how we react and how we respond, and that then coincides with or corresponds to our own personal makeup. And in a way, our own personal kind of birth chart energy, and then our own story as well, and our own energy. So yeah, it can feel like the apocalypse is coming, but it's not. It's just change. It's change, and a change in a really big way, change on a collective level that we're all feeling and we're all experiencing, but we're not all experiencing it in the same way. Mm-hmm. And that's the real core thing to remember. Some people are having the best year of their lives. Some people's lives have transformed in a really phenomenal way. Others have been devastated. Others have absolutely been ruined. But that's the thing, is that, people, I think at the beginning were saying, oh, we're all in the same boat. We're not all in the same boat. We are all navigating the same sea, but we're all in different boats. Some people don't even have boats. Some people are treading water. Other people are in yachts. Other people are in, battleships. And, so it's that awareness that, yes, we're all going through something on a collective level and we're all being impacted by it. But our response to it, our reaction to it, and our personal, effect is different, and it can even be different within the same household. It can be different, within the same kind of group of friends. It doesn't necessarily mean we're all going through the same experience. So yes, when planets shift and change or move retrograde, there is a general kind of feeling that we all potentially have, and to experience, but our reaction, our responses to it will dictate how the outcome develops and grows and what that outcome is.
So what kind of comes up for me there that you've mentioned is just maybe caution to people who are pushing a narrative that something will happen one way or another, and that it is destined to happen in one way, and that it's going to be all of us having that one experience. So I know a lot of people were very frightened of the couple of eclipses we had in Cancer. And I was very happy because it was like a field day for me. It's like I have this anytime we go retrograde in major planets, because I do so much healing work that when everyone else is not doing it, I feel like a bit of a desperate case. Whereas when everyone has to go and look at their shadow, it's like everything's lighter for me because the whole collective is doing it and I don't have to work so hard. Yeah, lovely. I love that. And I do think that, people who are maybe more tuned into their personal development journey, and who are doing the personal development work, I kind of feel like you do feel the shifts and changes maybe more effectively or more powerfully, or, you do feel the effects of it, maybe in a more kind of stereotypical way sometimes, or like you say, when other people are kind of, it's like the opposite. It's like, you get the other side of the planet. So yeah, maybe when Pluto goes retrograde, everybody else, yes, has to do their kind of shadow work and go in and transform and change. But because you're somebody who already does that, then you feel the other side of that, which is like empowered and, coming out of yourself, feeling in your own energy, feeling good. So yeah, I mean, it is like different people will have different reactions and different stories. And eclipses are, there's such interesting times, I love eclipses as well, because they are, again, like more on a collective level. We all generally feel it, whereas some new moons and full moons people don't really feel. But eclipses are something that people definitely are more resonant with. And it is, people maybe, been talking about, these eclipses that just happened. But it was, I think because there was 3 in a row, it was like, we had a lunar eclipse in Sagittarius, and then solar eclipse in Cancer, and then a lunar eclipse in Capricorn. And then we're building up to the second new moon in Cancer on the 20th of July. And this is all very significant. This is all very, very significant. And for me, eclipses are like real major kind of beginnings and endings. They represent openings, like openings into our soul, openings into our energy system, where we will feel our energy system more effectively, where we can do more powerful energy work with ourselves, meditative work with ourselves and each other as energy workers. So I kind of feel like eclipses kind of open us up to our bigger story and open us up to the kind of inner story, and we're able to maybe connect the inner self and the outer self more effectively at times. With eclipses, we get to see it. We get to see the results of our inner work, or we get to see the results of our inner experiences on the outer level more effectively at times with eclipses. I think that's what it really brings up. Because it is like, it's the sun and moon really coming into alignment, and also with the earth. And so it's like these kind of core energies that affect us and that are part of us as well, really kind of opening, and we get to see that and feel that more powerfully, more effectively. But eclipses are always, and have always been, like, throughout time, have always been a time where people have been like, it's the end of the world, and I remember, like in my early 20s, there was an eclipse coming up, and everybody was like, oh my God, like, this is it. And it's like, yes, it's the end. It's not. But it's a metaphorical ending. It can be this time of
metaphorically giving things up, ending things in your life, no longer being a part of a kind of behavior or an energy that is non-beneficial for you. You know, it's a time where you can make really powerful, effective change in your life. And so, you know, these eclipses that we've just had in a row here, it's like, you know, a reminder to end, to finish, to be done with where you've been previously, to be finished with that, so that then we can begin again. And this second new moon in Cancer, it's significant that it's in Cancer because Cancerian energy, as you will very well know, is very much about the heart. And the heart energy dictates our vibration, it dictates our frequency, it dictates so much in our experience, but you know, it talks about what we draw into our life and who we draw into our life, and that's such an important part of our ongoing kind of personal development and where it is we want to get to. So, this second new moon in Cancer, after these eclipses, which have been very much endings, now we're at the second new moon in Cancer, so it's like, let's begin again with feeling different. Let's begin again with a brand new vibration, with a brand new frequency. What can we do to, you know, adjust the vibration, to adjust the feelings within ourselves, to feel like we can accomplish the things that we want to accomplish or achieve the things we want to achieve? And they don't have to be these big things. It can just be, I want to feel better. You know, I want to feel happier. I want to have more joy in my life. I want to be more relaxed. So it's like things like that. It's like these times represent these kind of metaphorical, more personal experiences, but we feel it collectively. So yeah, I think eclipses are a time of intensity. And like, you know, like these retrograde times as well, you know, they can be times of intensity, but it's the opportunity to make changes. It's the opportunity to let go. It's the opportunities to release old material. It's the opportunities to be done with certain patterns. And my job, I feel, as an astrologer, is to let you know that this is the best time to let this go. This is the best time to make changes. This is the best time to release and end what is no longer relevant. And it's the best time because, you know, the universe is aligning in a particular way. So the energy and the vibration and the collective energy and vibration is going to support that, you know.
So what would be a really good way for us? It seems like we've got just a couple of weeks of a breather before we head into the real fire kind of, which again doesn't have to be doom. You know, like a lot of people are going, oh my God, we're just going to explode the earth. But no, like fire is also motivation and passion, and, you know, we might just get more passionate and more, like, you know, there's loads of ways, right? Yeah. So what would be a really good way to be kinder to ourselves, knowing that we've just come out of the eclipse that we're just about to face? I'm hopefully getting this out on Monday for the new moon, fingers crossed, but you know, I operate on a different time zone these days. But if we can get it out, and then kind of looking ahead that the next half year is going to be quite fiery and quite intense, right? So how are we going to prepare for that? And how can we be kind in that?
Yeah, I think so much of it is about, you know, being kind to yourself. It's being, you know, it's loving yourself. It's being gentle on yourself. And I think that is also what's very significant about this second new moon in Cancer. It's a reminder that we have to come back into the heart. We have to come back into love and empathy and compassion. We have to come back into, you know, really nurturing ourselves, mothering ourselves, fathering ourselves, parenting ourselves, you know, like really looking after ourselves in the way that we really need to, and the way that maybe we haven't been able to up until this point. You know, the fiery energy is about taking action, and it is about doing. So it's like this mix of feeling and doing and matching those, you know, matching the action with what feels good for you from a self-loving place, from a self-nurturing place. It's not just about, you know, pleasure and desire. This is about, you know, what feels like love, you know, what feels like loving yourself. So, I mean, the fiery energy as well, I mean, so much of it is about, taking action and doing things. It's also about connection, you know, the fiery energy. I mean, all fire signs are about connection. It's about bringing people together. They're all very kind of sociable signs. So, it's about how we come together with others as well. So it's about maybe making sure that the people you have around you are supporting you, are encouraging you, are loving you, but also where you are supporting and encouraging and loving them in a way that is, like pushing development as well. Because it's, there is a kind of, a sticky kind of area where it's very easy to say, well, I'm loving myself, so I'm not going to work on myself anymore. That's me loving myself. Or I don't want to be challenged by these different perspectives, or by these, different ways of looking at my life. So my self-care is about closing off to that. And I'm just thinking about a lot of social movements and things like that that are going on right now. Some people are kind of blinkering to that, just put the blinkers on and pretend it's not happening because it challenges their core beliefs or it challenges who they are. So, self-care needs to also be about connection with others and how we're connecting with others and how we're loving other people and how we are all coming together as a more kind of nurturing collective experience. Like the Cancerian energy, it's about a family, this is about the kind of family unit and collective as a kind of nurturing, supportive family unit. So yeah, I think there's something in that about, loving yourself, taking care of yourself, but also part of that love, part of that care is about questioning yourself too. And, am I stuck in my own ways? Am I not challenging myself? Because when you get stuck, it's like any energy that gets stuck will stagnate, and that's going to create illness. On lots of different levels, emotionally, psychologically, energetically, spiritually, but physically as well. So the self-care needs to also involve the challenge, and I think that's the fire. The fire signs are not signs that, are going to be more easily pacified. Fire signs are the signs that are going to push. They're very insistent. They're impatient. They like to move. They like to connect. So if they meet a wall, they're going to just keep on asserting until the wall starts to come down. So I think this is what we're kind of maybe going into as well is, loving ourselves and nurturing ourselves and loving each other, nurturing each other, but also to challenge, to make sure that the beliefs that we have, that the perspectives we have, and that the direction that we're moving in is one that is progressive and that it's moving forward, that we're not moving back. That's where we've already been. We move with reference to the past. We move forward with reference to where we've already been, but we don't move back. So I think that's that kind of fieriness is, how are we moving forward and how can we challenge ourselves, in a way that we're still loving ourselves, but we're challenging ourselves to continue to progress, I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, not using the softness as an excuse, but staying committed to the light. Maybe fire is also light, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is, I love that saying as well, which is, the light shines brightest in the darkest of places, so, it's about coming together with the light and the dark, yin and yang, it's, shining a light in the places that maybe you haven't looked before, the places that you don't want to look, the places you don't want to go, shine a light in there, that's where it's going to shine the brightest. That's where you're going to get the most from it, is to look in these parts of the self. And it is challenging and it is difficult, but that's the kind of healing that we need as an individual, but also on a collective level as well. And I suppose that's part of that Chiron energy, going back to Chiron, that's part of the Chiron energy. Chiron is now in Aries, it's retrograde at the minute. But any planet that moves back into Aries, particularly, a planet that spent a long time in signs, it really is like a brand new beginning, like a brand new start. And with Chiron then, it's a brand new way of healing, that we need to take a new way, a new approach, in terms of healing ourselves. In Aries, it's very much about the self, it's about the individual, and it's about the body, it's about all these different separate parts of the self, how they all come together to form this kind of physical representation of our identity. So it's like healing the self, healing the identity, healing the body, healing all these components that make the physical body shape and form. But when we heal that as an individual, then it is, more likely that we heal the collective identity, we heal the collective body, that we all come together with.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. That's probably also why I feel very nourished by Chiron doing as it's doing. I also feel this really strong grandmother energy with the constellation that is going on at the moment. Maybe it's because I'm very influenced by Sedna, which is not kind of a planet we talk very often. We spend more time acknowledging Sedna coming round. I can see massive changes in my life alongside that trajectory. And it kind of feels like that there is this old wisdom and that we get to, in a way, liberate the ancestors. But we do have to be a little bit braver than we have been so far.
Yeah. Gosh, I love that. I love that so much, Patricia. Like, Sedna would be something like a planetary body that I would connect in with, that I would use. So it's interesting really hearing about that. I'm now, when we finish, going to investigate Sedna, so thank you. I think you're so right, that there is this kind of connection into, the past and healing the past, but moving forward, and with respect to all of that wisdom and to all of the knowledge and all of the things that have gone before. It's about moving forward, in a different way, in a new way. And that is definitely that Chiron and Aries energy too. Chiron and Aries Aries is the pioneer. It's going to carve out a brand new path. So with Chiron then, that combination is, very literally like carving out a new path of healing. There's that feeling of asserting ourselves in a new way, and asserting ourselves in a way that is definitely more healed. Like, yes, absolutely. I love that image of the loving grandmother, but with the newspaper in her hand. It's like, I'm watching you. I'm watching you. But I suppose that is part of, our own self-care too, and maybe that's what, like I was trying to maybe express as well, where we need to be both the kind of nurturing healer for ourselves, but also to challenge ourselves and also go, okay, you can't do that anymore. That needs to just stop. That needs to end. And now, try something else, do something different. And I suppose that's Chiron and Aries too, which is take a different path, take a different route, try something completely new, try something completely different.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of healers at the moment that I talk to, and me included, because the energy accelerated so quickly on the planet. I think a lot of us remembered times where that didn't go so well in the past. And especially kind of with where our planets are at. I think a lot of us are kind of stuck with these massive images of like floods rolling in and everything's pointless now, and it took me a while as well to, especially as you were saying with Chiron and Aries, to look at how we have changed history already, where we can get caught up in how we're repeating things, and this is like that happened, and this is like this war, and this is like that constellation, and last time the planets were in this position, this happened. But we don't spend enough time to look at how we have broken like the wheels of the past already.
Yes, that is exactly it. And I think that's what happens, when the planets go retrograde, even on a personal level as well. It's like a reminder, this is where you were. And like I said earlier, it's not that we have to go back into it. It's about reminding ourselves where we were, reminding ourselves where we've been. And also, like you said, exactly, like look how much progress we've made so far. Like look at all of these things that we've already done, that we've already changed, that we've brought healing into. And look what that has done. Like that's amazing. Mm-hmm. So now let's continue to heal these old wounds so that we can go even further next time. And I think that's what it really is as well, is that, yes, these references to the past, you see, yes, the last time this planet was doing this is what happened. Oh my God. It's like, yeah, something similar could happen. You know, there could be something similar in some way, but it will be different. It will be different because we're different. It will be different because we have all learned lessons. It will be different because, yeah, we're a different generation now, or, you know, we're on a different kind of vibration, we're on a different frequency now because things have changed, we have progressed, we have moved on, you know. So yeah, I think there is that element of fear that comes in, but it is about remembering that we are always progressing. We're always progressing, even on an individual level, even when it feels like we're not and we're going backwards. You know, sometimes we need to go back into that to remember the journey, to remember where we were, but also to kind of relearn how to get out of it, like to learn how to get out of it in a different way. And maybe that's the reason why we've had to go back in, because the way that we journeyed out of that wasn't as effective, or it didn't get us to the place that we needed to get to. So now we have to go back into it and make adjustments. You know, we need to change our relationship with that experience, or we need to change our relationship with that you know, energy, and then we can come out of it in a different way. But it's always going to be different. It's always going to be different. We're always going to either have a different perspective, or we're going to be different people, or whether there's going to be a different vibration, a different frequency, a different reaction. So it's always going to be different in some way. Nothing can ever be exactly the way it was. Yeah. But yeah, it's very interesting when people do talk about these kind of repeating patterns and the fear that comes with that. But I would say that's more like a reflection of their own kind of fear around change, or around going back into the past, within their own story that's then projected into this kind of collective ego, you know. Because I would often, my own reaction to things to all the events that are going on at the minute, you know, my own personal reaction is that, you know, that it's change and it's beneficial, you know, because change, although it can be so destructive and awful in terms of, you know, loss and grief and sorrow and, you know, yeah, the letting go of what was there before, and that can be devastating. Change is always going to be progressive in some way. It's always going to have some kind of journey out of it that is going to create some kind of progress, some kind of development, some new kind of learning, some new growth, that's going to lead us to somewhere different. And I would kind of pull back from saying like it's leading us to a better place, because sometimes it's just leading us to a different place. But it's how we look at it. It's how we're perceiving that as to whether it's better or not. And again, that comes from our own personal story within ourselves. You know, it comes from our own, perspectives. You know, some people will see it as a better thing, some people won't. You know.
I think I heard it with Russell Brand, and maybe Russell Brand was talking about it in one of his podcasts. And he has a very optimistic worldview in the sense that he believes that as things are rumbling, we're going to build something better. Which, you know, I'm a person that if something rumbles, I am ready for the worst case scenario. So I enjoy like hearing other people and going, oh yeah, wait, that's an option. But the point that he made that I thought you couldn't argue with was that in the world right now, there are so many people living the apocalypse and haven't been living the apocalypse for decades and hundreds of years. And so even small changes that might not even be noticeable to you or me as we sit here in our relative privilege, will transform the world of hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions. And it doesn't necessarily take the whole world to go underwater if we change small parts of the system that could ripple on quite significantly.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I would always say in my readings, it's like trauma is relative, change is relative. It's about your own experience of that, and it's about how you react and respond to it, and that, yes, something that we wouldn't even notice, like you said, our relative privilege, things that wouldn't affect our experience actually will affect others in a huge, huge way, and vice versa. It's like what would affect me in my life, in my story, might not affect somebody else in their story. And in their life, it might not be as significant, but yeah, for me, there is, I would be quite optimistic about, when I say quite, I would be very optimistic, really.
Amazing.
I don't want to put people off. But yeah, no, I would be more kind of optimistic about a lot of the changes that are going on. I completely understand other people's experiences and perspectives on it, and other people who've gone through so much loss and change, and it's been really devastating, and I totally get that. But my perspective on it is that there is going to be progressive change that comes with this. And for me, when the Black Lives Matter movement really started, that for me was like, yes, here we have the social change that, in a way, like I was kind of waiting for, with Saturn moving into Aquarius. It's like, yes, here we go. This is the kind of change that is necessary, to create a more effective balance in our collective experience.
Yeah, I can. So I'm always the person that tries to hold it together so it doesn't fall apart. Like, where I've got all my friends who are kind of like rooting for systems to crash and burn them down, and I'm over here just patching them together. It's like, we can make it work. But probably because I'm such a sensitive person, and when I hear, I think I'm very aware that when a system falls, there is a large amount of devastation and pain that occurs for some, and I have no ability to shut myself off of the suffering of others. So those kind of like warriors that are running into the battlefield, I'm just looking around and going, everyone's hurting, which I know is like a necessary part, like that's how we clear through things. But maybe for little pessimists like me, would you be able to kind of, maybe even the next couple of months, what would be like the highest outcome you could imagine? Like, what would be the best opportunity if we took all our chances that you could dream of or imagine with the constellations ahead?
Oh my goodness.
No pressure.
No pressure. Well, it's kind of challenging to think about that, on a collective level, because we're all in different positions, and it is like, well, how would that look in your own personal chart? How would that movement, how would that cycle look in your own personal chart? And that's a more effective way of being able to describe this. But, see something like the retrograde Mars that's coming up. Yeah. So Mars goes retrograde in September time. It's going to be retrograde until November. And that's retrograde through Aries as well. Like, I would say that's an opportunity to kind of begin again in terms of like how we're moving forward, and what ways we want to bring with us, like what ways of being, what ways of connection, what ways of behaving, reacting, responding do we want to move forward with. And I think for maybe the more pessimistic of people, this is an opportunity to kind of realign yourself and to think about moving forward. That's the thing about Aries energy. Like I said earlier, like the fire signs don't really want to stop. They kind of meet a wall and they insist and they persist, and but Aries more so than any other fire sign. So for me, I would kind of see the Aries Mars retrograde energy as an opportunity to kind of have a rethink about how we're kind of moving forward, to take a new perspective on it, to think about it in a different way. And I think it's an opportunity to maybe align with the new energy, aligning yourself with more confident aspects of the self. I mean, Aries energy is confident. It's, in its purest, most powerful form. It's so confident in itself. It knows itself. It's not going to question itself. It's just going to go and do it. So instinctive, and intuitive on that level, like kind of just knowing what it wants and not being afraid to go after that. So I think there's an opportunity in that retrograde Mars time frame to work on that within the self, to kind of, realign with your own courage, to realign with your own power, to realign with like your own kind of vision, but making sure that it's a vision that's about moving forward, and it's a vision that's about, like achievement. It's a vision about achieving something, like moving toward a goal, like moving toward aspirations. And I kind of feel like that is a kind of sense of optimism when we have something to move forward toward, when we know that this is what I want and this is the kind of energy that I can work with to kind of realign myself to then achieve that goal. I think that retrograde Mars is a good time for that, even though, I mean, you'll be hearing it all over the place, like retrograde Mars, and oh my goodness, it's such a challenging time and I can't get anything done and things aren't going anywhere, there's no movement happening, but use that time to reassess and reevaluate how you connect to your own aspirations, to your own goals, to your own sense of achievement, to even think about what I want to achieve and how can I do that. It's about reorganizing the plan, the strategy, and maybe thinking about new goals, to kind of aim for and new aspirations, but it's aligning yourself with that. It's like aligning yourself with the future, and kind of bringing the future into the present, so rather, and I think that's what Aries are so good at. Like seeing something that they want, but aligning themselves with it, rather than it always being this goal that we're working toward that always stays at this kind of future distance, It's a good kind of practice at that time, maybe, to, think about your goal and to think about what that would be like to experience that goal achieved, to think about how you would feel to achieve that, how you would feel to be in that experience. And it doesn't have to be like a career goal. It doesn't have to be something really big. Like I said earlier, like it can be so simple. It can be feeling happy, it can be just feeling more content within the self. So it's imagining that, but imagining, what that feels like, imagining the kind of thoughts that you'd be having about yourself, having achieved that. It's imagining what your vibration would be, basically. This is what we're doing, we're kind of aligning our vibration in the present with that future vibration that we want to achieve. And that retrograde Mars time frame is a good time to think about that and then to bring that energy into the present. So then you're already beginning to achieve it, and you're going to be more likely to achieve it. And not just that, but all of the other consequences of being in that frequency, or all of the other consequences of achieving that, start to come in. And that's what we can do as humans. Like, we can do this, we can kind of create and manifest, and we can use these certain time frames for that kind of realignment. That's what retrograde is so good for. It has a positive consequence, So it's a good time, I would say, for kind of realignment with goals and aspirations, but bringing the future into the present and starting to connect with that in the now. Yeah.
Amazing. So really hearing ourselves and rediscovering ourselves, and then bringing the future into now, making it tangible in ways.
Yeah, like making it real, and making it real through how it feels. Like making that part of like a daily practice or a weekly practice of imagining that goal and how you feel having achieved that goal, and bringing that vibration, that feeling into the present by just imagining it, meditating with it, and feeling it through the body, Yeah.
Amazing. I think we're nearly at the end of our conversational part.
Okay.
I think as a last question, I wonder if there is something about the stars that makes you feel loved, or like something that you've experienced that makes you feel like there is a kindness of the universe, of the stars towards us.
Oh, that's a really lovely question. It's such a lovely thing to think about, actually. And I suppose I haven't really thought about it in that way before, but I would say that, you know, for me, it's like my birth chart. You know, it's like that for me feels like the gift. It's like, because it opened me up to so many aspects of me, you know, where I realized like I'm not just a Leo, you know, I have a Scorpio moon, I have, you know, a Leo Mercury, I have all these other things, and it's like, wow, it felt like a gift. It felt like I could suddenly relate more to myself rather than just knowing my star sign, because there was a lot of Leo traits that I don't connect with. You know, with a Scorpio moon, I mean, I'm light and dark, you know, and there's a lot of, Scorpio intensity that's there that kind of Leos don't generally have. So for me, the gift was knowing that. It was seeing myself in all of my different expressions and being able to identify with it all and to work on myself, to understand how I could work on myself. That, you know, this is the way my energy is in this particular part of myself. So like my Venus placement tells me, which is in Cancer, tells me how I relate to people and how I relate to myself in all shapes and forms. So I would know then that, yeah, there's times when I go into a shell when I connect with people, which is so not stereotypically Leo, you know, but when I connect, I go into my shell sometimes, I want to hide away. But knowing that was the gift. It's like knowing my chart is the gift. And I think when I was in my very early 20s, like I think I was 20, 21, when I first like drew the whole chart, and it just blew me away. And it was just, it just felt like, now this is me on a real journey of self-discovery, self-knowledge, self-awareness, self-healing that I'm so, so grateful for every day, you know.
Oh, how lovely. Yeah, what a brilliant note to end this on. Thank you, Bel, for joining us. I hope that after this conversation, the optimists among you feel more optimistic in rekindling the fire of the next few months. And if, like me, you're a little bit of a pessimist, maybe this conversation has given you a gentle reminder that nothing is eternally doomed. If you would like to connect with Bel, you could visit her website, bellogue.com, or find her on Instagram at Bel_Logue_astrology. If you would like to get in touch with me, let me know what you like and dislike about the podcast and get in on future question and answer sessions. You can email me at contact@patricialubeck.com. You can also visit my website, patricialubeck.com, or find me on Instagram at patricia.lubeck. Of course, you're more than welcome to leave us a comment. Let us know what your planetary positions are, what you identify with, what you don't identify with. And of course, feel free to hit the subscribe button and press the bell icon. In kindness, we rise.